Where am I at? Gotta turn my camera on. Oh, is it on or off?
Good morning. Welcome to the Coos County Board of Commissioners on August 6th, 2024. Please join me in a Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Brief reminder, your phone has a little switch on the side of it to silence it. If you haven't done that already, I encourage you to do that right now. Thank you very much. One other point of business is that I anticipate a number of public comments today, probably during agenda items and also during the public comments section at the end of the meeting. And this will be a reminder that when we have a lot of people who want to express an opinion, we do need to be mindful of our time consumption, and so we will be observing that 3-minute limitation today. And so there's that reminder. And then, so thank you all for being here. And without further ado, we will move right into our agenda items, beginning with 3A. The Fourth Amendment to Intergovernmental Agreement 44300-0002600006 with Oregon Health Authority. Good morning, Mr. Rowley.
Good morning.
Can you say that agreement number 4 times in rapid succession?
You did a great job with that. I don't think so.
All right.
This is a request to enter into a contract with the state to provide jail diversion services. They're increasing our funding for our forensic program in the amount of $191,000 for the year.
I move we approve the amendment 4 to the IGA 44300-0002600006-0 with the Oregon Health Authority and authorized Department Head Mike Rowley to DocuSign.
I second on all those zeros.
Motion and a second. So we're seeing $191,000 increase.
Correct.
Okay, that's significant.
Yeah.
Does that increase put us on the on any additional regulatory hooks or?
No, it's just an increase in our current contract.
Okay, all right.
So it does specify that these funds are for jail diversion services, but other than that, it's still the boilerplate, just added to it.
Okay, all right, very good. Are there any comments on the board?
Nope.
Any comments in the room on this agenda item? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
And we are moving late agenda item 5A into this slot since Mr. Rowley's already at the table. This is for a new hire proposed pay grade alteration. Okay, Mike.
Yes, we have a chance to hire Jennifer Whitted. She will be replacing our current ACT ESA team manager. She is currently the program manager of an ACT team in Texas, and she has been a lead in the ACT team for 4 years. So this is a great find for us. We are asking to hire her at step 3, and the pay grade is $823.
Can you tell us about the ACT ESA team? What that
ACT stands for Assertive Community Treatment. They're high-level need clients, and we actually go out to their house and into the community to treat them. The ESA is an early assessment for psychosis, and it's for people that are younger, like 16 to 20-something, and it's to prevent long-term problems with that. So it's kind of assessing them, catching it early, treating it so it doesn't become a lifelong problem.
Okay.
I move we approve the hiring of Jennifer Whitted at step 3 of pay grade 823 for the ACT ESA Team Program Manager position at Coos Health and Wellness.
A second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion on the board? Any discussion in the room?
Did you find housing?
I have no idea. We always
You
know
probably
that
would hurt
potentially
if
is a
you had.
problem, yeah.
Okay.
Any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, Mike. Next up, 3B, forestry, payment of Coos Forest Patrol invoice. Good morning, Master Forester Lance Morgan.
Good
How are
morning,
you
sir.
today?
Lance Morgan, Coos County Forester. This voucher has been prepared to pay Coos Forest Protective Association for fire suppression during 24-25. It has been prorated to department by acres assigned to each. The forestry portion of the invoice is $102,546.40, which exceeds the departmental spending authority. One thing I'd like to mention, I guess since 2022, that's a $40,000 increase.
And what percentage?
That would be about 35% probably.
No, 67%. Going from 60 to,
65 to 106,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, or 40, about.
$40,000.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
There's no end in sight, it seems like.
No.
It's like doubled since 21, close to it.
Right. Just like groceries.
Yep.
I move we authorize payment of the invoice to Coos Forest Protective Association in the amount of $106,541.71, of which forestry's portion is $102,546.40.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion on the board.
Yep.
Do you recover those expenses from the other departments, or you just do that? out of the
I think they each get
of your
billed, I
heart?
believe.
Pardon me?
I think they each get billed separately.
Oh.
Okay. And those amounts are strictly based on land area. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
it's
right.
gonna have a pretty big impact on our budget. You think about $100,000.
Yeah, that's a big impact, and I wonder if there is any risk assessment mixed into that. I mean, you just said it's strictly on land area, but it seems like it might be appropriate to have some risk ratio factored into that as well.
One thing they might do on that, I'm not sure, I know they do on the other assessment we pay, is I think when there's more fires across the rest of the state, we have to share in the burden.
Okay. Is that socialism or neighborliness?
I don't know why you wanna call that.
Neighbors.
That's not fair.
Okay. Any other discussion on the board? Any discussion in the room? Danessa?
Vanessa Rains, Portal Point, Oregon.
Good morning.
My question, I have a couple of questions. One, did we increase any of our forest lands from the last bill at all?
From the
As far as
last bill,
increase in acreage?
Don't think so. Probably from 20, we've increased like maybe 50%. Or like 12
Okay, so we
probably.
gotta take that into consideration. The other, so the county has quite a bit of equipment, so do you guys put like water trucks or anything close to some of your major, acreage for extra protection?
We have two of our own small pumpers, and Beaver Hill has the water tanker out there. We can use it anytime.
Are they placed there or are
No,
they
it's
in
always
the
there.
yard?
It's solid waste. but it's kind of centrally located in our main
Okay.
line holding there.
So do you have an agreement with Coos Fire Patrol to use some of your equipment to, help with the firefighting, like cats and, water trucks and
If it's-
ponds and those kind of things?
If they're needed, they got so much stuff like that already, they respond with using several tankers, they got their own dozer, and they probably get their dozer faster than we could.
Well, I'm just trying to figure out ways that we can reduce this cost by having some joint, because of the equipment shared and all that kind of stuff in the firefighting, so that's.
They don't do that. The only thing they will decrease is if we have an administrative assessment that we have to pay that, it's basically, we're saddled with, public lines are saddled with that, saying that that private companies have all this equipment available, so they get a reduction, and we actually have more than some of those private companies, but we don't get a
What,
reduction.
ponds, do you have any ponds or places that you can get water quickly?
Yeah, we have a few of those small.
Because I know they would help with lining ponds and those kind of things to make sure that, I mean, our investment in the timber as a county, we need to be able to protect it and maybe have double coverage on it with
Yeah.
our own, some of our own resources.
Good idea, I admit, but you don't see it that way.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Process question, just going forward. Typically with agenda, comments on agenda items, we have the comments directed to the Board of Commissioners, to the chair, and then if you all feel like staff should weigh in on something, you can direct it to.
That is an accurate statement of protocol. I would have authorized those questions anyway because
That's a reminder.
yeah, that's a great reminder. Also, I want to while we're distracted for a moment with process, if I can hear you talking up here, then it's too loud. Please, if you have something to say to somebody, whisper it in their ear. The voices are disruptive, they carry, they're distracting, and I don't want to have that happening in the room. Thank you very much. Okay, is there any other discussion on this agenda item? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, Lance. Next up, 3C Sheriff's Office, Captain Sanborn. This is for the US, or modification of the BLM contract. Good morning. Good morning, Captain. Good morning, Sheriff.
It's okay. Good morning, Commissioner.
I was just reading from the, Was that
speak
you
up.
behind me this morning?
I don't believe so.
Oh, okay, all right. Okay.
Were you speaking?
No, not very much.
For the record, no.
All right.
Morning, gentlemen.
Yes, sir.
So this is actually, just the scheduled increase. It's a 5-year contract with BLM, 5% increase. So it's about $38,400 increase per year, totaling 192, a little over 192, 192,235. So, President Board review and sign modification number P00002.
Okay.
And this does pay for a full-time deputy position.
Mr. Chair, I move to sign modification number P00002 and authorize chair to sign.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion on the board?
Is this a multi-year?
Yes, sir, it's fine.
How much a year? About 100,000 or so, I guess.
175,712.
Mm-hmm.
This brings it up to 183,762.
Okay, I see. Okay, I see where that is. Thank you.
Yep. Very good. Any other discussion on the board? Any discussion in the room? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
That motion carries. 3D, Timber and Operation Patrol Services Program.
And we had approval for some last commissioner meeting. This really isn't different, other than there's so many that they sometimes we have to chase it down and get their own internal accounting process, which makes it take a while to get us back to contract. And these are 3 additional. We try to bring them all at the same time. We're unable to this year.
Okay,
So this is the tops for Fairview Timber, Oak Hill Indian Tribe, and Rosebud Reserve.
okay. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve and sign attached contracts with Fairview Timber LLC, Cofield Tribe, and Roseburg Resources Co.
Okay,
Second,
motion and a second. Any discussion on the board?
and that's the $3,000 one.
There's three of them.
And then,
Total, total, 10,000.
yeah,
Mhm.
second, if I hadn't.
Motion
already.
and a second. You did already, we were just discussing. Any other discussion on the board? Any discussion in the room? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries, thank you very much. And finally, for the Sheriff's Department, dispatch contracts, 3E.
And same thing, this is 3 of our outstanding dispatch contracts, one for Central Cruise, one for Hauser, and one for the state of Fire. Looks like total of $7,806.20, and there's a yearly call increase of 4.5%, it's based off past call volume. So it's an increase of 4.5%, and 2.5% to be used for the radio maintenance. So the radio, the communications levy, we do try to pay into a ongoing maintenance fund for that as well. Just 2.5%.
Very good.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I move to sign for Coos Central RFPD, Hauser RFPD, and City of Lakeside RFPD for dispatch services.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion on the board?
Nope.
Any discussion in the room? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Carries.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you,
Thank
gentlemen.
you.
Have a wonderful, blessed day.
By the way, I like that first number of your first agenda item a lot better than the last.
The 192.
The 550.
Yes, sir. Oh, 550.
Total, yeah.
All right. This is 3F, juvenile, IGA with Douglas County for detention beds, minus the shelter, minus shelter program. I think that means minor shelter program.
Yes.
If I got that right. Mr. Baird, good morning.
Yes, Brian Baird from the Coos County General Department. I'm here requesting the approval from the board for the adjustment of the IGA between Coos and Douglas County. Previously, we paid $174,042 for detention beds. I'm asking that we be reduced to 1,100 beds. There will be a $20,000 savings in that, down to $154,000. The additional $20,000 would be set aside. If we go over those 1,100 days, it would cost us a little more per day. But when we run the average, quite frankly, I think we're going to save $20,000 by doing this.
Cool.
Very
Right
good.
on.
The board
Yeah,
and task departments with trying to find cost savings. I believe this to be potentially a $20,000 cost savings.
Okay.
And when I recognize it's only $20,000, it's $20,000. So
It's better than a sharp stick in the eye.
Mhm.
Do you have a
Mr.
motion?
Mr. Chair, move to approval of Douglas Coos detention beds for juvenile and rental IGA decreasing the days down to 1,100 days and the contract amount down to $154,000 for 24-25.
Very good.
Second?
Motion and a second. Brian, I assume that this $20,000, if in fact not spent as per your estimation, that that'll just roll into your carryover.
my expectation would be if we don't get into that $20,000, what would happen is June 30th, it would still be in the juvenile department's account. Come
Yeah.
July 1st, it would go back into the general fund for the county, and the juvenile
Yeah.
department would essentially just lose that money, but it would remain in the county coffers,
Right.
which is the goal of what we want.
Right.
In lieu of it sitting in the Douglas County coffers without us being able to utilize those bed days.
Right. Very good.
Good job.
Any other discussion on the board?
I do have a quick comment. That is meant to say minus shelter
Yeah,
program.
of course.
Because,
Minus the shelter program.
yeah,
Okay.
so that part is also being
Yes.
amended out of the
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes.
What's the reason for that again?
The bed spacing, so for some of the shelter beds around the great state of Oregon, candidly, the rate the state is reimbursing has gone through the roof, and then the guidelines to place youth that are delinquent and dependent in the same shelter programs have become extremely difficult to place youth in shelter programs. Basically, we can't get a youth placed in a shelter program because of the behavior that brought them to the juvenile department. It it triages them out. They're too at risk, which is ironic for me since that's what we need a shelter program for. Although for some of those programs, candidly, I understand that because when they're getting reimbursed between $300 and $700 a day for that bed, it pays a lot better than it does for some of the rest of us. So it's a business decision being made by different entities around the state of Oregon that unfortunately is adversely affecting juveniles across the state of Oregon and availability for shelter beds.
Unfortunate. Okay. All right. Any other discussion on the board? Any discussion in the room on this agenda item?
How you doing today, sir?
Good.
Good. Rob Taylor from Bandon, Oregon. And I just had a couple of questions. I'll direct it to you, but I'll let the person at the table
Thank you for that
answer
observance
Like
of
that? I
protocol.
followed
Very
protocol.
good, very
Yeah.
good.
I'm
Quick
sober this
learner.
morning. What can I say? Have we, I'm just kind of curious, is the delinquent population for kids, is that increasing?
Mr. Baird?
So when we look at the statistics are actually down when you look at the last 5 years, the rolling average, but I would also indicate that that's going to be generated by, so all of our data is available through the Oregon Youth Authority website.
Okay.
You can go and you can look at the number of referrals that come in by crime, by age, by all those things. So I would indicate if you go back to about 2019, when COVID hit, our numbers go down significantly. Just like they did with law enforcement. Then we have the referrals, we have a multitude of different components that go along with that. The number of referrals we're receiving has gone down, but the severity in the mental health of the youth that we're working with is probably worse than we've ever seen in the history of my career.
What do you attribute that to? COVID? Or your just personal opinion? You work in the industry.
My personal opinion is that when we decriminalized drugs, that had a really negative effect. Many of our things are coordinated together, so it has to do with the population that you supervise, with the services that you need, and then we have some of these entities that A affects B, that affects C, and certain entities are being cut that we have no control over, that affects our funding.
So if I may interject here, your answer seems to infer that Mr. Taylor's question was regarding the mental health part of the equation rather than the crime statistics portion of the question.
Right.
So is that a correct assumption on my part?
I think we have mental health is in areas that need more services now than ever before. So at the age of 14, a youth can go in, they can refuse to do any treatment, take any medication. You can't require them to basically do anything at the age of 14 now in the great state of Oregon.
Right. Okay. So not taking away from your time, Rob, but I wanted to interject another question regarding those crime statistics, and I see a plethora of information indicating that FBI crime statistics indicate that crime is down, but that is only based on a surface reading of the numbers themselves as reported. The problem is that there are a number of agencies, a number of law enforcement agencies at the local, state, and federal level who are actually not reporting crime.
Right.
Certain crimes, they've ceased reporting of certain whole categories of crimes, and so I'm wondering if those statistics you quoted are actually consistent with reality on the ground, or that altered reality of the modified reporting standards.
And it could be. I can tell you that when we go back, I have not broken it down by, for example, by entity like Bandon versus Coos Bay versus North Bend versus Sheriff's Department. But I definitively know some of our referrals are down over the last X number of years. And part of that could absolutely take into account that, candidly, when I have youth, and I don't mean this in a negative way towards youth, but if I have a youth who goes to the store and they go, and I don't want to minimize Safeway down here, but if they go down to Safeway and they steal a 50-cent candy bar and law enforcement becomes involved, then I get a referral for a theft 3. And then on the adult side, we have someone over here who is physically abusing their partner. I mean, the DA's office is short-staffed. They're going to have to make a determination on what is the most important in moving that forward. And I understand that many of my youth are going to fall to the bottom of that. We do prevention things. We've also expanded our formal accountability agreement, which is where we don't necessarily take youth to court, but we try to work with them in an informal way, which can speed up the system. No offense to the attorneys, it takes them out of the equation, and we can probably get things done 6 weeks to 2 months faster for the loan stuff.
I think that's important. Just one quick other question. We had a COVID, schools were shut down for what, a year? Do you think that had any direct effect on kids' mental health?
I personally, I would absolutely say that's gonna have a serious effect on youth's mental health. I think we have youth that candidly, that they missed a year to 18 months of school. They didn't get some of those fundamental basics, so they went forward. So if you were in 4th grade in 2020 and now you're in 8th grade, you may not have learned some of the basic fundamentals in math or science that candidly you need to be able to learn the next step. And then we also have a large subsection of youth candidly right now who previously had gone to school at a higher level, but post-COVID, a lot of parents aren't sending their kids back to school. Or the kids that are sending their kids back to school, the attendance rate in schools are
down.
Horrible.
Horrible.
I mean, it's a success if we can get youth to go to a typical youth, about 80%, I believe, is what they're pretty happy with right now. Again, you can look at every school district in Coos County, you can see what their average rate is. And I can tell you, if you owned a business and that was your employee and they showed up 80% of the time, you would quickly show them to the door.
Right.
And these are our youth that are still going to school. They're still, I mean, these are our kids that are doing well, not even on probation oftentimes. And their attendance rate in school is really lacking. I'd also indicate quickly, we have some barriers. For example, if you get caught in certain school districts with a dime bag of weed or a pipe, you get expelled for a year from that school district.
Yeah.
So one of the things we're working on right now is working with the schools to see if we can do something where those youth, an alternative program where those youth can still be going to school for those 6 to 8 hours a day, where they can be doing an extracurricular, or we can be engaging them in a positive pro-social activity.
Because if their time is taken up, they're not doing drugs.
Instead of them sitting at home playing video games and eating Cocoa Puffs. That doesn't seem to do well for them at 12, 13 years old.
Or some other kind of puffs.
Yeah. Other
All right.
folks.
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. I could have
In
had a
addition
long
to that,
discussion.
then the legislature gets in the act and further restricts what juvenile or sheriff's office can do.
Right. Okay. Very good. Any other comments in the room on this agenda item? Yes, Mary? Oh.
In answer to Rob's question, lack of essential. There are 90 essential nutrients. Lack of any of those nutrients can result in mental problems.
That's true. Thank
Did
you
we get
very
a name
much.
on that?
Oh, I'm sorry. Mary
Allegheny.
Murphy, Allegheny.
Mary Murphy.
There we go. Any other comments in the room? Yes, Captain Sanborn.
John Sanborn, Sheriff's Office. I think you can speak to the UCR data a little bit. We do participate in the NIBRS, the National Incident-Based Reporting System, and I can tell you that the crime rate that you see that's reported to the federal government is not what we see locally. They're interested in certain things, frankly, and everything else is lumped into these general categories or not reported at all. A good example would be violation of restraining order is a local, it's a contempt of court. Feds don't care about it. It doesn't even get reported to the feds. Traffic crashes, several other minor things that we deal with all the time does not get reported to the federal government at all. So I would say that it is vastly underrepresented locally as to the feds.
Great, thank you for those comments. Any other comments in the room? Marty? Okay.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Marty Hurt, Bandon, Oregon. Okay, I have just one question that I was confused by. He stated that if you're over the age of 14, they can't do anything. They can't force them to take, they can't force them into any programs. But yet the school district, if you're caught with a dime bag or a pipe, you get kicked out for a year. shouldn't there be something where it's the same thing? If you're 14, you know, either you're accountable and you can be taken into a program, or you're not accountable, so you shouldn't be kicked out of school. I'm just saying there's a dichotomy there I don't understand, so if you could explain that to me, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, I think the explanation is a lack of common sense.
Well,
I have a slightly different view of that. I have two children, adult children, who are school teachers. And you have too many of those kids like that in the schoolroom, no one in that room learns. And I don't know what the answer is to it. It's not kicking them out of school, but used to be, if we didn't have drugs around my age, but people would bring a beer occasionally, but they got expelled from school. They were not allowed to be there because they were disrupting.
and I agree with that. I mean, I'm not arguing that aspect of it. I'm just saying that if if his hands are tied and he can't do anything with anybody over the age of 14, it seems that we're in a situation where there is no good solution. And, you know, I agree, having people in the classroom that are disruptive ruins it for everybody in the classroom. But if he was allowed to segregate them out and say, okay, we're going to have a special school for disruptive folks, or a program for people that have a drug issue of that age, but his hands are tied. The schools are like, oh, well, we're trying to do the best we can for the schools, but there's a huge gap in, well, what's best for the misguided 14-year-old.
No question.
Right. Okay, yep, difficult problems. You had a comment,
Oh, she's going to.
Commissioner?
I did. As you can tell, Brian is on top of stuff. I might embarrass him a little bit, but he is one of our best department heads that I have ever had the privilege to appoint.
Okay,
Yeah, he's really on top of stuff all the time.
thank you. Yes, Gail.
Can I speak?
You certainly may.
I'm Gail Farrell. I live in Coos Bay. I'm a retired teacher, 25 years, and I just feel my heart pounding because there's a lot of things I want to say here. I want to say that as a teacher, attendance rate lower than 93% was a very at-risk student. If they weren't up to 95%, we were watching them very carefully to make sure that they didn't fall through the cracks and end up, dropping out and those sort of things, getting into crime. So 80% is horrific to me. I can't believe that, but I can believe it knowing what's been going on in the world. There's a program through Pacific College in Fresno, California. A man came up with restorative justice. Now it's been twisted and made wrong in a lot of places. They do it completely incorrectly. But if there was a restorative justice program where the student or offender had to restore what they took, whatever they did, to those they offended, that I've seen worked very well. If it worked on a crime on our property, we had to have a young man who defaced our property come and do community service so that he didn't damage it, and it worked really well. And it got him straightened out. Let's see, is there anything else I wanted to say about this? It's a hard problem, and parenting. Parenting is
That's
so
the key.
so critical, and that's I think where we're losing a lot of kids.
Yep.
That's
All
all I
right,
have to
very
say.
good. Thank you very much. Any other comments on this agenda item? Yes. Jim.
Morning, Jim Bennett, Bandon. You know, as I shared before with the kids and with the homeless vocational programs, you know,
Yeah.
we've got a shortage of blue collar skills.
Yeah.
Welding and plumbing and electricians. You know, small engine repair is a wide swath. How many young men do you think would get all turned on by being able to work on side-by-sides and ATVs and stuff? And it could be a segue into working on bigger machines. Get contracts with the Forest Service to work on their stuff. And instead of the Devereaux Center being another part of this kleptocracy that we're in, you know, maybe we could make it for the betterment instead of the detriment.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments on this agenda item? Okay, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That motion carries. Thank you, Brian. 3G, hello, Katie. Order number 2407028B, cancellation of uncollectible personal property taxes.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Good.
Good.
So every year we go through the tax roll and find either personal property, manufactured structures, or businesses that we just cannot get any money from. So these ones are all manufactured structures. The structures are all gone. So oftentimes people tear down their structures and just don't let the assessor's office know. So the taxes continue to add up. So we're asking to be able to cancel these and write them off and get rid of them on our tax roll.
Okay, do I have a motion?
I move we approve order number 2407028B, cancellation of uncollectible personal property taxes.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion on the board?
Might point out for the benefit of those in the room, there are only 4 accounts that were deemed uncollectible. They total $1,166. 3 of them were for $132 each. So we're not losing a lot of money to.
And those ones with the 132, those are all just the state ombudsman fees. On the $10. That's just what, it would just go directly to the state if we don't.
There's not a lot of money that were out there, the tax money that's not being collected.
Right, right. Yeah, very good. It actually does look like it's cost to the county only $769. So that's excellent. It's a good collection rate. Right. Motion in a second. Any other discussion on the board? Any discussion in the room? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Katie.
3H is for County Council, Order 2407031L in the matter of establishing county priorities for fiscal year 24-25. Counselor?
Yeah, at every budget cycle, we ask our departments to submit priorities, prioritization lists for projects. This is important for us to be able to raise a discretionary unity expense when it comes to use of public funds. And so this particular agenda item is for prioritization list of the maintenance department. It's a proposed repair and maintenance schedule for the county's buildings and facilities. The board can either adopt this as presented or make changes as they see fit. Again, this is something that was discussed during the budget process.
Okay.
I'm comfortable with it. I move we approve order number 2407031L, establishing priorities for the maintenance department.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion on the board?
Nope.
No, sir.
Any discussion in the room? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 3I, also County Council in the matter of establishing county priorities for fiscal year 24-25, Order 2407032L.
Same idea here, except now we're talking about the Parks Department. This is a proposed repair and maintenance schedule for our parks facilities.
Okay.
Okay, move to review and approve order 2407-032L.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion on the board?
Nope.
The request is to review and approve. Is there more review required prior to approval in the determination of any commissioners?
Just,
I'm fine with that.
yep, I'm fine currently.
Very good. Any discussion in the room? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Very good. And next up is 3J. This is the third of 4 of these, I believe. Order 2407-033L, in the matter of establishing county priorities for fiscal year 24-25, having to do with
The road department. Yeah, it relates to repair and maintenance schedule for our road system.
Yeah. Very good. I have a motion and a second, please.
Give me a second.
Okay.
I move we approve order 2407-033L.
Seconds for discussion.
All right. Motion and a second. Discussion, please.
The thing that bothers me is the last two sentences on page 9 of 9. Due to budgetary restraints, mowing, brushing operations be limited to as-needed basis. Due to budgetary restraints, ditching operations be limited to as-needed basis. We've needed these two forever. We're not getting done. We need to move those up to where they're a priority, in my opinion. Because without, as the expert from Portland State University on roads came down many years ago, he said if you don't maintain your ditches and your culverts, your roads go to pot. And then you have more expense trying to keep them up and trying to fix them. So I'm not quite in agreement with these last two items as needed. They need to be up towards the front someplace.
Okay.
And just paving over the cracks in the road because you didn't do the ditching in the first place doesn't help, because they crack the next year.
Right. Yeah,
Yep.
so, Commissioner Main, I'm sure, based on discussions that we've had previously with the Public Works Director, I believe he is philosophically in agreement as a practical matter. So, I guess my question is, does anybody have, I see a hand up, actually. And that is Paul Slater. Mr. Slater, would you please weigh in?
Yeah, so we did talk about this a little bit during the budgeting process. You know, we are limited, of course, in our number of staff members and money. So brushing and ditching is done the brushing is done regularly. As long as we can keep our brush cutters and mowers going, we have at least one running almost every day that we work. They are hard to keep going sometimes. They break down regularly. But we do keep them going regularly. Currently, even if we ran all three of the brush cutter mowers that we own, we could not mow our entire road system that we're responsible for in less than 2 years. So we're on a 3 to 5 year cycle with brushing and mowing. We do try to mow and brush as much as we can, but we do have, of course, other priorities that we have to get to with the limited people we have. So that's why that statement's in there for brushing. For ditching, you'll see a different list for next fiscal year that will list some different priorities. We just finished a 10.5 mile section of road that we ditched from Sitcom out to the county line on Sitcom Lane. We do plan on ditching North Fork Lane this fiscal year, as well as a couple other roads, hopefully Daniels Creek. And I think we had one or two more. I don't have the list here in front of me. But as you stated, Rod, philosophically, I completely agree that ditching is one of the most important things we can do for our road system, because if we don't maintain water and the flow of water, it is going to continue to deteriorate our road system as it has in the past.
All right, thank you very much. So I'm wondering if there is a way to accommodate both your understanding, Paul, of those maintenance needs and the importance of ditching, and your phrasing of this on this page 9, and Commissioner Main's concerns about this statement. How do we resolve this? I'm open to ideas.
I could revise the list and add the roads that we do plan on ditching this fiscal year to it. But I guess my understanding of this list was this was a list of projects that we're not necessarily gonna get to because of our constraints with our budget, not the projects we plan on doing necessarily.
Okay. So
Maybe,
I will say,
on that.
liaison, that our current roadmaster and road employees are spending a lot more time brushing and ditching than we have in years past, to the best of my knowledge.
But the 10.5 miles is only a little over 1% of the county road system.
But that's just one job.
I understand that, but it needs to be better.
Well, I mean, this is clearly primarily a funding issue, because if we had more funding available for the roads department, they would be able to have more staff than the 28 or 29 that they're down to now, from the 100 that they were at 12 years ago or so, 15 years, whenever it was.
52 people.
And then it was 52, and now we're down to under 30. So
50 some in 08, and then it went down to under 30.
I mean, Paul's comment that well, I mean, the reality that we can only hit 1% in that amount of time is very telling. The 3 to 5 year brushing schedule is very telling. Money is the only way to fix this.
Well, two things.
You can't squeeze more blood out of a turn.
In 85, the county general fund got about $25 million in today's dollars, and part of it went to the road department.
Right.
Also tomorrow, ODOT is going around the state wanting more money for their highway system stuff. Although the county has 60% of all the roadways in the state, the state now gets 50% of all the taxes on roadway systems. The county gets 30 and the cities get 20. It's my understanding that they want to cut the county in half. They want to take 15% of the county's money and give it to the state. But yet they can have $376 million for homeless with no training for the homeless or anything else, just house them.
All right.
So, Chair,
yes, Counselor.
Reviewing the exhibit, my 2 cents for what it's worth, but I look at brushing and ditching as, while those are important to keep our roads in good repair and prevent them from failing, some of the other priorities are roads that have already failed, and culverts that are broken, roads that have failed, and so it makes sense that those might. I think that's the thinking, at least, that those are things that have gotten so bad that they need to be addressed now.
Right.
Yeah, and if I may, Mr. Chair, for all you out there, I didn't realize this till we had this expert come from Portland State about roadways, but when you're driving on a paved road out in the county, and you go around a turn and the outside of the turn is slumped off, it's broken in the asphalt, look at the ditch. It's full, and what happens is the water collects, it gets underneath the pavement, and the softest part is on the outside, the least supported part, and it fails. You've got to have the water run off to get away from that.
So, I mean, it appears what we have, obviously, what we have is the important has fallen prey to the tyranny of the urgent, and this is what happens with these kinds of budgetary constraints that we're trying to work through. And our road system is the #1 most valuable asset that this county has, and rightly so. It's what facilitates easy access to medical care, to commerce, to education, to all the things that we rely on and count on as givens in our society are facilitated by a good road system.
Well, what is the most two most important things for the population. First one's safety, sheriff's office, police, et cetera.
Right,
Number two is commerce, roadways.
right. So, anyway, so getting back to the key question is it necessary then to look at ways to modify this prioritization schedule to address the importance of the ditching particularly, specifically? Or do we have enough precedent with our current roads department and staffing there, and the decision-making that has been exemplified over the last years? Do we have enough precedent there to trust that despite our discontent with the precise wording, that in practicality, these maintenance functions will continue to the greatest degree possible?
I'm satisfied with the way it's stated.
Commissioner Main?
Not so much.
All right, so,
Let's ask council to change it.
all right, so let's have a motion to that effect then.
I move that we direct council to reprioritize the road maintenance list.
To incorporate ditching as a higher priority. Would that be a suitable amendment to your motion?
Yeah. I'd like to leave him a little latitude in how he does it.
Well, before I second, I'd like you to include county council working with the road department to work on this rather than just
Sure,
county
he would.
council.
All right. You go ahead, Bob, make the motion.
I would make a motion, you're gonna
Rescind
withdraw your motion
withdraw
first?
your
I
motion?
withdraw.
Okay,
Thank you.
so I would make a motion that rushing ditching have a second look at by county council and the roadmaster.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. Any further discussion on this agenda item?
Nope.
Any discussion in the room? Vanessa?
Vanessa Rains, Myrtle Point. I'm here to find out why we don't sub some of this out, to see if we can do it more cost effective. There's a lot of people now with the logging now kind of on its, prices are way down. There are a lot of people that have equipment out there that could sub this out and maybe do it more cost effective and get more percentage of the roads ditched than what we're getting done with our own county.
I have two answers to that. The first is that if we were to do that, we would, that work would be subject to prevailing wage, which is higher than what our road department employees are paid.
Why can't it be off the bid?
Pardon me?
Why can't it be based off the bid of a length of a highway?
The bid, it can, but that bid has to be done using prevailing wage labor.
If the value of the project is over $50,000.
We didn't have to have it for the fair when we built buildings at the fair and stuff. So, and that was on county property, so why does it have to be prevailing wage?
That was a different project.
Any project over $50,000, it's a public improvement, is subject to prevailing wage. So it could have been that the structures of the fairgrounds were under that.
Well, this one, it was done by,
volunteers.
Oh, that's.
no, it was
yep,
done by a,
That's a different thing. I know what you're
another
talking about.
organization and then given to the fair.
Okay.
So we weren't in charge of building that.
So who made the rules about the prevailing wage? Is that
Well,
county
that would be Congress.
Well, that's Congress.
That's a federal law.
And a state law as well.
Mm-hmm.
So votes have consequences.
So you're saying prevailing wage by subbing it out is higher than if we did it ourselves in-house?
Yes.
As well as the profit margin, and we also have to think about that, right? I mean, when you contract for something, it tends to be cheaper than, or it tends to cost more than doing it in-house. But in-house, obviously there's staffing limitations, you can't do it all yourself.
The other the other limitation is that we're using all the money we currently have, Vanessa, with what we're doing. And so any contracting would be in addition to that. We could lay off people.
Well, I'm just trying to get more done with
Yeah.
less people.
We
because-
have been to.
Okay, that was just my suggestion.
It's a puzzle every day, but there is a consistent reality, and that is that contracting work like this out is, without exception, in my experience, more expensive than doing it in-house because of the prevailing wage issue primarily.
But they might be able to accomplish more square footage than our, that's all I was trying to get to.
Okay, well, thank you for that. Okay, so we have a motion and a second to direct county council to work with the public works director and revise this. We have, yep.
I have a comment on it.
Okay.
Before you go on.
Yep.
You've been at Dan, and I think Danessa had a great idea. Why couldn't you circumvent the prevailing wage thing by calling each road, making it piecemeal? So it's under 50, it's a pattern. We keep pitching our wagon to Salem and what they want. And what I'd like to see us do is enfranchise the people here, the homeless and the people that are unemployed and the kids and everything, rather than continuing to hitch our wagon to them.
Very good.
That is why certain roadways at junctures are called different names in the county in the past. If that's, it's somewhat confusing to new folks, but that's why it was done many years ago.
I don't know, I'm not conversant enough with the prevailing wage law and labor law to know what division of project would fall within or without the within or outside the lines of that law. We obviously have to comply with laws that if we authorize a defiance of is going to engender personal risk of liability for us, even though, I agree with you. That's exactly what we need to do. How do we get there is, by finding the creative route around any loopholes that are available for us to exercise a greater degree of common sense and a lesser degree of mindless compliance to stupidity. Yeah, well, and we definitely utilize him for that as well, so thank you for that. Okay, any other comments on this agenda item? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. You can do the vote and then I'll
Okay,
follow.
all right, and I am voting aye as well. So, post-vote comment.
Post-vote comment, as Paul and I move now to work together on revising this. I'm curious, how you'd like to see it change. I mean, one idea I have would be to identify specific projects that have been discussed here and make a commitment to those brushing and ditching projects. So I think that's better than saying we'll do it on an as-needed basis. We'll instead be identifying those particular projects that we're putting money toward.
Yeah, I think that sounds reasonable. If Paul finds that a reasonable approach as well, yeah. And those revisions are reflected in this reintroduced item next time around, I'm sure that we'll have a happier outcome for it. Okay, moving on to 3K, Order 2407034L in the matter of establishing county priorities for fiscal year 24-25 for solid waste.
Me again?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you again.
This is for solid waste department. Same idea here. We have an order identifying priority projects due to we don't have enough money to go around to take care of all. all of the needs, so we're highlighting those that
Yeah.
will be prioritized.
Yep, very good. May I have a motion?
I move we approve order 2407-034L, establishing county priorities for the solid waste department.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion on the board?
Yes. The number one is the pit roof.
Yes.
If anybody, contractors, qualified contractors, would like to go out there and look at that and make a bid, that'd be great, because we have an estimate of only $3.5 million for the county pit, garbage pit roof, only the roof. $3.5 million is the estimate. So if anybody's listening or knows a contractor who wants to go out there and look at it, maybe it could be done for a little less.
It would be great to find a local company to be
Yep.
able to do this work at a competitive price and still earn a fair profit.
I do remember the bridge at Riley Ranch over the railroad tracks was estimated and bid multi-millions of dollars. A firm who needed the work from Klamath Falls came in and did it for $1 million many years ago.
So we can,
There's folks out there.
Yep, that's right. All right. Any other discussion on the board? Any discussion in the room? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Final agenda item 3L today, offshore wind energy advisory vote for November 5th, 2024 election. And I'll introduce this one. The Board of Commissioners needs to gauge public opinion on the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management wind energy areas lease proposal. Posing the question in a presidential election cycle will render the broadest possible public input. And the SEL 805 is on the back of this form. So before we have, well, actually, let's go ahead and have a motion before we discuss, and I'll introduce that discussion, please. We have a motion.
Motion to authorize submission of SEL 805 of the November 5th election for an advisory vote on the question of public opinion regarding the BOM, Bureau of Ocean Energy Management offshore wind energy project, and I will add off the coast of Coos County.
Okay.
I second for discussion.
Okay, motion and a second. So I'd like to introduce into the discussion a point that was raised after I submitted this agenda item, and it is apparently there is a cost incurred to the county to place this question on the ballot. And the approximated cost, although an exact number is not possible to be provided, I guess, was somewhere around $5,000. Now, I had I'm sorry, I should have had this up here, but I do have an email here from the county clerk. And I had asked the question of her after I heard this issue come up. I had asked her what the reality was from her perspective, and she said that she can't give me an exact cost before the election because there are too many unknowns. So the unknowns stated that contribute to this cost are voter turnout. Well, voter turnout is, I mean, ballots are mailed, whether they're returned or not, doesn't make any difference to the cost from as far as I know, except maybe you've got a couple more hours counting ballots, but addition of one question to the ballot wouldn't change that. Number of offices and number of measures on the ballot. So if this measure happens to push onto another page then you would have an additional page being printed. That's not gonna change postage, but it would change printing costs and paper cost. Personnel time, again, I don't really see that. Supplies, I suppose, well, that's paper, so that's kind of quoted twice. Postage, no, that's not gonna change, because that's certainly not gonna push it over the 1 ounce. So I don't know. She says that we did go back and look at billings for previous elections and estimate the cost to be around $4,500 to $5,000 for a measure or advisory question. However, this is just an estimate. So I don't, yeah, okay, we've got the clerk would like to comment, and we will get to that. Before that, any other comments on the board?
I appreciate where you're going with this, but I just don't like the idea of having a lot of advisory votes. I think we know, we can tell the temperature of our citizens regarding offshore wind. I think it's not a viable thing to do at this time. However, I can't predict the future. And once we take an advisory vote, it's there for a long time to come. And I think that can limit the ability of the board to respond to changing situations in the future. So I'm very, very comfortable that none of the three of us are supportive of offshore wind development. It's proven to be not a viable option currently. And we can voice that opinion without an advisory vote. It's just a precedent I hate to start. We're elected to make decisions on behalf of the county. We can't have an advisory vote on everything. I don't know where one draws the line once you start down that path. We have good meetings, we have open meetings, we listen intently to all of you, and then we make up our own minds. And I think an advisory vote makes it more difficult to do that. So I would vote no for this, or I'm going to vote no on this.
Mm-hmm. Okay, all right, very good. Any other discussion on the board?
Well, the last time, well, originally I wrote the proclamation to oppose offshore wind quite a while ago, and we all passed it. A lot of counties also have done the same, Douglas, Curry, et cetera, up the coast, except I think Lincoln County and maybe Astoria. But it's not in their backyard either, in Lincoln and Astoria. The last time we had a discussion about having a countywide vote, many of the fishing folks and or fishing representatives were here and were hesitant about doing that. And they were working on this collaborative project with the offshore wind people and pass a law through the legislature to have some kind of order and some voice in what was going to happen. Well, as you know, about a month ago, Division LCDC just ran over the top of that whole legislative process and approved BOM for some things, which upset quite a few of them. So when I saw this come on the agenda, I emailed 7 principal folks who had advice for the board the last meeting. One was the vice president of the Troll Association. One has multiple family members fishing out of Charleston. One sells equipment to, two of them sell equipment to fishing families out of Charleston. One was Secretary Treasurer of the Shrimp Association. I got 6 responses out of 7 back. One of them said, or 2 of them said, we were opposed before because we thought we could work it out, but we're in favor of this now. One of them said, if we have a countywide vote, would it give more emphasis to the multi-gazillionaire promoters to have a campaign to approve it on whatever media? They wanted to know that. And I don't have an answer for that. Would they spend that money? Several of them who sold equipment said, absolutely, we need this to tell BOM what we think. And I'm one of 3 representatives appointed by the state of Oregon on BOM, but it's only advisory to BOM. It seems like the federal government, along with the promoters, are going right ahead with whatever they want anyway. Now, if we did have a countywide vote, like John says, would that predispose us to, and we said no to whatever the wind companies wanted when they come on shore, would that predispose us to a bias? But as happened in the past, when we had the gas pipeline discussion, which went on for a long time, we ended up hiring a hearings officer to go through all the regulations on zoning about having a county pipeline. That left the commissioners out of it, although John got some issues that had to go to the Ethics Commission. He was found that none of that was true in the first place. But it took the county commissioners out of it until we got the decision from the hearings officer. So we could do the same thing, even though let's say we have a vote today and we approve this for the November ballot, we could have a hearings officer in our stead going through the motions if and when it happens by BOM and they approve it, because they're approving the soundings and the research right now over and above what we didn't want in the first place. But then when they get ready to talk about coming on shore, we probably need a hearings officer instead of the 3 of us advising us of what would be legal as far as zoning requirements for the pipeline coming on shore, et cetera. Now, 2 other things I've learned. You all know about feed and tariff, and I talked to 2 people today that didn't know about that. But feed and tariff has been adopted in Virginia and Rhode Island legislatures because they have offshore wind. It's been talked about at least twice in the Oregon legislature so far in the last 3 years. Feed and tariff simply is, if the project toes up somehow, a big storm comes in and destroys half of it, the ratepayers, you and I, are on the hook for making the investors whole. Imagine that. Well, there's a new one now. I just learned about 3 weeks ago. BOM is allowing the wind developers to, for each wind tower, have its own LLC. So if it goes destructo somehow, they shed themselves of it. It's their own separate legal entity, each tower. So then who does the cleanup? They just have the LLC go bankrupt and they don't worry about that one anymore. There's a lot of issues out there that you probably don't know about, but that's just a couple of them. There's a lot of money being spent right now, if you don't know, locally to promote this.
Commissioners, so I do want to say, when it comes to the land use discussion. I would say the hearings officer doesn't entirely solve the issue. And with, you know, if that's something we wanted to chat about in executive session, you know, I could provide you a memo on that. I don't want to say a whole lot else.
Yeah. So the, you know, we've got two things going on here. Number one is the concerns about the project itself and what public opinion is on that. The question before us really is whether or not to put this advisory vote on the ballot. And that brings me to the second issue, which is the monetary implications of doing so. Obviously, there are a bunch of other implications as well. But I would like to, do we still have Julie Brecky?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I don't see her hand
Down
up.
towards the bottom.
Okay, if Julie is still available, I would invite you to weigh in on the cost aspect of this, Julie.
I'll just read what I wrote in the comments. I said, Rod, this is the proposed cost. Elections cost money. If you're confused about the billing process that I explained, I suggest that you look into the ORAs and the ORSs that I attached in the email, or you could have asked me further questions ahead of the meeting. I don't set the cost. That's what the cost is proposed to be. So if you're confused about that, I'm happy to show you billing from past elections and explain that with you. But nothing is free, as you know. Elections cost money, and we are responsible for paying for the general election. Those unknowns, voter turnout, the number of offices and measures are part of the equation which we use to determine the costs set forth by those ORAs and ORSs.
Julie, I have a question. This is Bob.
Yes.
Of your survey, how many of those were for a general election during a presidential election?
So surveys are considered measures. So we went back and looked at the cost of individual measures for a general presidential election. That's what we looked at.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
This sort of, I'm not a subject matter expert on running elections, but I do know that the general elections, when you put a measure on a general election, it tends to be a higher likelihood of incurring costs. Is that correct, Julie? Versus a special election, primary?
We incur most of the cost during a general election. During special district elections, we bill out to different districts, and so yes, we incur most of the cost during a general election.
I just remember when we were discussing the our last attempt at a levy, you know, putting it in on the general as opposed to the March election, there'd be a difference in cost. So that's sort of where I'm pulling that from. I don't know if there's more paperwork, because the general election, it's a bigger ballot.
All right, so for the sake of discussion, let's just assume that it would cost the county $5,000 to put this agenda or this advisory vote question on the ballot. So, you know, that would be a significant part of the question before us today is, do we feel like obtaining this wide-based, this broad-based public opinion, would that be worth that $5,000 expenditure? So, you know, and I'm not proposing to ultimately know the answer to that. I think that Commissioner Sweet makes a valid point when he says that, you know, we know the temperature of the public. Obviously, based on my experience, I would say it's certainly a supermajority or better are opposed to it, and therefore would be desirous of our working in opposition to the project. This was intended just as a more of a formalization of that public support for that oppositional position. So, you know, with that, I guess I'd ask if there's any other discussion on the board before we go to public comment.
I do have another.
I do too.
Okay.
There are a lot of people that are just dead set against fossil fuels, period. And no matter what the cost of some of these green projects is, they just vote for it. And that's good. I mean, everyone has their right to have their own opinion. They have values they measure differently than I tend to be kind of monetarily oriented. If it doesn't pay out, you shouldn't do it unless there's some huge benefit. What I'm getting to is, in our circle, there's a lot of us that are opposed to this, but our circle is not that big. This could very easily come back contrary to what you just said. I'd like to know for sure I'm on the right path. You may find out that in a lot of people's minds, you're not on the right path. And so I think there's a risk in that.
And your point acknowledged, point stipulated, Commissioner, and I do not propose or presume to know the minds of the majority of voters. I merely stated what my view is based on my own experience, and the purpose for this was to determine really what the public will is more fully. Obviously, when we had a town hall on this subject, it was attended by a broad base of people from you know, both conservatives and liberals. You know, I think self-professed. I'm not casting aspersions, and everybody came together. And I don't recall hearing one person at that town hall who was in favor of this wind energy project. So, you know, I think it's something upon which the majority of people in the county are united, regardless of ideology. This is not an ideological question. This is a practical question. So, anyway, and again, I'm not saying that it's necessarily worth that $5,000 expenditure to the county just to determine this public opinion. But, and I see the hands. Please stand by. I know Commissioner Maine had one more comment he wanted to make as well.
Well, I started this whole thing 3 or 4 years ago when I got a call from one of the fishing groups saying, you know what's about to happen? I didn't know anything about it. And they said, would you like to get appointed to BOM? And I said, okay. And from then I really got immersed into this whole thing and wrote the proclamation for the county, and we all passed it, all kinds of things. And then at the town halls that we had, like out in the Empire, at the school, etc. And like you say, nobody was in favor that I heard of. But then the atmosphere changed a little bit with the fishing community when they thought they were going to have a voice in this whole process through legislative action, which turned out the opposite. The state still kind of ran over the top of them. And now they're back to, in my reading of them, they're not at all happy with what's going on out there in BOM, etc. But for me, it was to protect our local fishermen and all the people who supply those fishermen, whether it's for parts, whether it's for docking, whether, who knows what, fuel, etc. All those people have a part in the fishing industry, and it was to protect them. It wasn't anything, you know. This wind thing has gotten really ugly as far as I'm concerned, and it should never been proposed by BOM in the first place at 3,000 some feet deep. out there. In the East Coast, they're a few 100 feet deep.
I agree.
Big,
And
big
that's
tech
just
problems. Yeah.
Besides all the other things, the feed-in tariff and the LLCs and all that kind of stuff,
Right.
that they're trying to get out of any responsibility, just tells me it's not a good deal.
Okay.
So I'm all in favor, and five of the 7 people I posed said yes, put it on.
Yeah, okay, all right. I'm sure that we have some public comments, and actually Phil was the first one with his hand up a little bit ago, so we'll give Phil first shot. And then I think Danessa is after that, and then we'll have Marty and Jim.
Well,
And we are running.
Okay. What I'd like to discuss is this advisory vote. We've had them before, and I feel if you make an advisory vote, regardless which way it goes, this board is obligated to that vote, and before they can change it, they should have to have another vote to see if the same thing is right. And we had on the, what was it, 93,000 acres of O&C land, the tribe was wanting it. It went on the ballot, and I think people that voted then, 85% of them said no. We want to retain that land, public land.
Okay.
Now, we've had a city
Is there
commissioner.
a time that's better to submit this? I mean, do you find there's a certain year that it should be submitted? I know when our budget is due and all that.
We had a lockdown fight system out over this same issue right here. You remember that, Bob?
I missed something somewhere, I'm not with you.
I said, on these advisory votes,
Yeah.
Okay.
that we were talking about, I said, we've had them before.
Yeah.
We
right.
had one on the, turning over the
Wagon road.
Right. Lands,
Yeah.
and it went
Okay.
down by 85% of the people that voted in that election
Correct.
said no.
Right.
And we have since had sitting commissioners,
Right.
and we've also had commissioners that run for commissioners,
Mm-hmm.
that their agenda is that
Okay.
they want to put it up
Okay.
or do something about it, even though you're gonna have to go through Congress, I believe, to do it.
Correct.
I do not think it's right for 85% of the people that voted against it.
Right.
They should be given you should go back now and vote that same issue and see if the people still feel that way.
Mhm.
It's not right to take their vote once and use it then down the road the way
it
say
can't-
no.
Tim, or it came up after that, the Coke Hill tribe proposed another issue on the Wagon Road to the Board of Commissioners, and I was the one that killed that project.
I remember it very well.
Yeah. Because we'd already had a vote said no.
Yes.
Right.
And that's what it should be until the people say different. You should have an advisory vote. If you make it on this right here, right now, if it's no, then it should stay no until you get another vote saying put it back on there, because you're serving the people, not ruling them. That's a problem with what
That's
happened
exactly
last
right.
week.
Mm-hmm.
You do not rule the people. You are elected to serve them.
That's right. That's exactly why, and I'm sorry your time is up, but that's exactly why. Oh, geez. That's exactly why this question is here, to determine the will of the people, Phil, because we are servants of the people. We work for you. Thank you very much. Okay, Danessa was next.
Vanessa Rains, Myrtle Point. Well, first of all, that 5,000, candidates don't even pay that to get on, and they get at least a half of a page. They don't pay that to get to be to be in the voters pamphlet. I understand the orgs. Those are laws written not by the people. So, and rules that are not written by the people. The other one is, who's gonna advocate for the whales and all the other critters out there. Who's gonna, I came here, I wrote down proxy. I'm a whale proxy right now. They just came out with a news article that in 3 years in UK, 3,000 whales, porpoises, and dolphins are on the shores. Who's gonna clean up dead whales all over the shores? And the public safety of those dead whales on our beaches. Are you gonna blow them up and have body parts all over the place?
I think we
That
learned that
actually
lesson.
happened.
And then are you gonna have fiberglass where no one can go to the beach and walk?
Yep.
So is that our county gonna clean up that?
Mhm.
Who's gonna clean up the beaches? So, that's why I think the advisory takes you guys off the hook. It's public awareness. How many people totally, when you have these town halls, how many actually show up? How many people in your population of about 60,000 people in Coos County, how many people actually have voiced to you guys their opposition or their favor to the wind project?
Anywhere from 3 or 4 to a dozen.
Except in Myrtle Point, and most of them come.
Okay, I'm an abnormality.
We had, if I remember right, the most we ever had was Lakeside and Powers. We had a handful in Coos Bay. We had like 3 or 4 in Bandon.
Probably
They don't turn
reached
out
maybe
much.
300, would you say that's fair? 300 people have given you an express.
That's probably 10
yeah.
or more times than we had.
So really, public awareness is a big one, and putting it on a ballot, they're gonna have to pretty much read it, and know a little bit about it, and maybe get some information about it. Also, the Chevron case.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? We're tired of bureaucracy coming and ramming down our throats, and the people don't get to say anything.
Mhm.
This stuff needs to come back to the vote.
Mhm.
So the cost, I remember John Sweet asking for $40,000 for a consultant for writing about the right wording for a tax levy. You're willing to spend that kind of money on that and not on something that's gonna affect every one of your citizens in rates up to 5 to 10 times their rates? That's what I'm talking about. So,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you. All right, I believe Marty was next, and then I can't see who else is. Oh, Diane will be after that.
Diane, Mr. Bennett, a few other folks.
Okay.
Good morning, guys. Nice to see you again. It's been like minutes. Anyway, the whole point of this situation is we're not arguing whether wind turbine's good, wind turbine's bad. I think everybody pretty much says no, they're bad. The whole question before you is, do you want to know the public sentiment of every single voter in Coos County?
Right.
We have the same 50 people showing up for these meetings, so they're going to have the same 50 opinions. And we had the Sawdust Theater thing where a bunch of people showed up, and surprisingly, people on both sides of the aisle were agreeing on things, which I thought was just, I was gobsmacked.
Yeah.
But the whole point is you guys have this opportunity to ask all 49,000, let's just round it up to 50, all 50,000 people in the county that are registered voters, what they think about this. And that's it. It's not legally binding. You're not changing the laws. You're not changing the rules and regulations. You're not forcing anything down anybody's throat. It's not like if you guys get this vote and 99% of the people say wind turbine's bad, things may change. You may have a different opinion. You may bring it up again. The whole point is it allows everybody to have a voice, and all three of you guys are gonna look like heroes by saying, we wanted to know what every single one of the 50,000 people that are registered voters in Coos County had to say about this. Now, the other thing is $5,000 to add a question to a ballot. It's a change of a ballot definition file in the clear ballot system. It's about a 5-minute operation. Now, if it goes onto a second page, maybe it'll be more for mailing. This is not like we're saying, oh, well, there's an advisory in Bandon, or there's a thing in Bandon, and we're gonna have to do a special mailing and a special ballot. This is something that will go on every single ballot, not like, oh, it goes on 12 out of the 49,000 ballots, and we gotta, do all these other special steps. The computer system is set up to do that really easily. So when they say $5,000, I'm going, that can't be right. But these are the same people, the clerk's office, that wanted to charge me $9,300 to to get a copy of the ballot images, which they fought for 2 years to not allow me to have, and how much did they spend for lawyers to keep me away from ballot images? But $9,300 makes sense if you're making a paper copy of a paper ballot. I just said, copy this directory on this hard drive onto a thumb drive. $50 for a thumb drive, $50 for the time. That's $9,300. I'm questioning where they came up with the 5,000. How am I doing on time?
20 seconds.
I'm done. Thank you. Thanks for letting me talk.
All right. Thank you, Marty. And my stopwatch app is not responding as I would expect. Counselor, could you take over the timing, please?
Sure.
Thank you so much.
Diane Rich,
Hello,
North
Diane.
Bend. You know, I look at this $5,000 and that's penny wise and pound foolish. You've got a $5 million grant that was given to Washington State University to write an outcome-based survey so that everyone could agree with them how much they want the offshore wind to come in. OSU, $2 million grant was given, and we're questioning $5,000. We need to know, and we need to have that information so that we can go up against BOEM and say, listen, our county said no. We don't want to pay to bring the power on board. We don't want to pay when it falls apart. I mean, they're talking about spending $64 billion and ruining our coast. Our best protection is the knowledge that our people don't want it. And that question can only be answered by putting it out on the ballot. So this is really quite a question, and $5,000 is nothing to know that information. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Oh, wait, hold on. Jim had his hand up before you did. I apologize. He just didn't repeat, and I forgot.
What about RFT?
Oh, did Rob have his hand up too? Or?
I'm waiting for everyone else to go.
Okay, all right.
I'm gonna be pinch hitter.
Jim Bennett, Bandon. So, first of all, fossil fuels, the term fossil fuel, petroleum doesn't come from dead dinosaurs. That was a term that Standard Oil, Rockefeller's people came up with a long time ago because it has a connotation of finite and limitation and lack. But we really have oceans of oil underneath us. But you know, even though I've been a student of sustainable development for many years, it just occurred to me a year or two ago, it's a business plan. So it's in their interest to create lack and scarcity as to manipulate the supply and demand dynamic. And forgive me, John, but by you calling this our little circle, this little circle is our community that you have a sworn fiduciary responsibility to represent. And it's very clear that the people don't want this boondoggle. And make no mistake, this is just another act of war. When we call these people idiots, we're letting them off too easy. You don't need to be that smart to know that from the very, very beginning to the very, very end, your disposal of it, the ecology, the marine life, it's a complete loser. And if we still think that the progressive agenda is humanitarian or about the environment, I have some land along the Klamath River that I'd like to sell you. Thanks.
All right, Susan?
Just a question, because a lot of lack of understanding about what this is going to entail and eventually become. If there's any way to get the knowledge out there along with this, because as you said, this becomes a passionate question about, well, something has to be done. I hear that more often than not. Well, something has to be done. And my statement has been, I agree, but this isn't the answer. And if it can get beyond the passion and get to knowledge base, get back to reasoning instead of emoting, because understanding
Just a simple thing, the brown albatross. I don't even know that people even talk about the brown albatross. They talk about the ones that are local.
Mhm.
Brown albatross will migrate from east to west, not north to south. Those blades are gonna be right in their path. And nobody knows that. Very few people know that. I shouldn't say nobody. It's the information that can be given. So I don't know if this would provide that, because you're already talking about condensing it down so that it's not taking up more pages. But I don't know if there's a way to I don't know how to answer that, because it was my own homework and others that were helping me with information. But if you're not asking, you're not getting that information. So it's more of a, is there a way? Is there a way to go from, let's step away from the emoting of it and get into the reasoning of it, so that we can start using more of a logical side. Because
Okay.
this is bad.
Very good. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Karen Crouch, Lakeside. Just wanted to let you know that, town halls are great, but they're not convenient for everyone. Coming to this meeting is a pain in the butt for someone who lives in Lakeside. Yes, I could do it on Zoom, but it just doesn't have the same effect when you're speaking. I think you owe it to the voting public to make this issue more top of their awareness. Whether you're for it or against it, it doesn't really matter, because the people will come to the town halls who are affected, who are angry, who are wanting to fight something like this. The average person is going to sit in their house and not be aware of it. So I think it's important to get it on the ballot. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yep.
Tim?
Tim?
Tim Pierce, Bend in Oregon. A couple years ago, I read an article about a series of windmill farms in the Midwest that the federal government fined hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars for killing 152 bald eagles. Now, if I kill one, off to prison with me. And the government has ruled that corporations are people, but nobody went to jail. They fined them all this money, never said word one about any hawks, owls, songbirds, or anything else that was murdered by this stuff. And then they were allowed to continue to kill after they paid the fine. And it will be in this thing too. If they come here, they're going to be allowed to kill federally protected birds like seagulls, and they'll kill them by the bazillions. Where I can't kill one, not that I want to. It's just crazy. And the other thing is, try to put a billboard on Highway 101. Why? Because it's an eyesore for the tourists. I think those things are an abomination, not eyesores, windmills. But anyway, I think you guys have the right idea. Somehow or other, we have to get this message out that maybe the majority of the people here are not very keen on the idea of messing with our little corner of the world this way.
Okay.
It spoils everything. It'll spoil tourism. It'll spoil everything. So we've already got enough problems here without something like that. Like that one lady said, who's going to clean up the mess? Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Mr. Taylor.
Rob Taylor from Bandon, because it's a beautiful place and I don't want to screw it up, and that's the job of the federal government. I just drove across West Texas, and from Amarillo to the Texas border, there is nothing but ugly windmills. I didn't think only God could make a country look so ugly until the federal government came in and littered the whole entire place with those ugly windmills. It was a horrid sight. It was like watching Dante's Inferno in action. And as I said before, I feel like the Don Quixote of Coos County. I have been doing, me, Diane, and several of us here have been doing rallies twice on every Saturday, or every 2 Saturdays of the month. We've been doing 4 rallies. We do 2 in one day and 2 in the other. one in Coos Bay and one in Bandon on one Saturday, and then the next week we do one in Gold Beach and one in Brookings. And I can tell you right now, the response is overwhelming. This is a non-partial issue. We don't have any other issue that's going on at these rallies other than the windmills. And we've got kids coming up, kids who have been indoctrinated into the green idea that we can save the planet with this garbage, and they are even saying they're opposed to this. I was at the Curry County State Fair, our county fair, just last week, and I can tell you now that it's a definite nonpartisan issue because the chair of the Democratic Party of Curry County came and got pamphlets and signs to put in the headquarters of the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party and the Republican Party have the same pamphlets in both of their headquarters in Curry County. If this doesn't tell you the importance of this issue, and I'll give you one good example, the Bandon Marsh expansion. What did we hear when the federal government came in? We're from the federal government and we'll do what we want. They told us that. They didn't give a damn about us. When we put that on the ballot, we had a 70% turnout with a 72% return of people telling the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to go pound sand. That was one of the reasons that we got rid of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service trying to take over the Coquille Valley. It would have destroyed the economy of Bandon and of Coquille. This town would have been laid to waste if those farmers would have been had taken their land away. The other reason was the mosquito disaster that was caused by the Bandon Marsh expansion. That was voted on by Fred Messerly and Cam Perry. That was before you were even on here, John. And the $5,000, that's a pittance to what we're going to pay if we get these windmills in here. We are saving money by spending this $5,000.
Okay.
So I highly recommend you put it on the ballot because it's the only sane thing to do. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Rob. Okay, yes, sir. Joe.
Hey, Joe.
Okay.
Just a recent article to read when you have time. It will be something that I speak about.
Very good. Thank you.
I'm Joe Wilson. I'm from Curry County. I want to congratulate y'all for coming down to Curry County and sitting through the conference that we had about jurisdiction on our natural resources. I think that's very important to the survival of both Curry County and Coos County that we move in that direction. Today I'm here to speak about the offshore windmills. I spent 50 plus years in the heavy industrial steel fabrication business. And I also was on the board of directors of the Western States Petroleum Association, Associates Vice Chair of the board. I was a lobbyist for the petroleum industry. I know how they look when they want to invest in projects like the offshore windmills. What we have going on is right now, currently in this country, and as you will read with that article, there's a lot of pushback. We have windmills that are failing on the coast, on the East Coast. Parts of them are coming up on the beaches, are having to, close off the beaches, more dead whales, birds. I mean, it's an environmental disaster. This is a beta test. Now, the petroleum countries and companies and the multinationals that are behind these windmills, before they put large investments like they're going to have to do for these offshore windmills, they look at the community. Will they have problems? Because I know, for example, projects that they had to spend $40 million and they never got to put a spade in the ground. Here it would be something in the ocean. So, public opinion is very important. Right now there's a poll running in the Pallet down in Brookings about the windmills, and it's 80% against. But the point is, I know y'all can come out and say you're against the windmills, but it's nothing like a public vote. And I really believe it will be in the 80% potential. And we also need to make people realize the harm these windmills are going to do. A lot of people, they're against them, but they don't know. And this is gonna end up in court. And with the new Chevron decision and the Grants Pass decision, giving more authority to counties, to localities to make their own decisions, I think having a vote like this, an advisory vote like this, will give more standing in the court. And I'm pretty sure if we do make it to court, you'll probably be part of that, and that will be expensive too. So what has happened now, just recently, when BOEM has put out RFQs for these windmills, they couldn't find enough bidders. They had to cancel the bids. That's because they were looking at the costs they would have in courts and everything else to put those windmills in place. So this $5,000, and I question, this is the first I've heard about this. We'll be discussing this down in Curry County tomorrow, hopefully putting it on the ballot. But I think this $5,000 is, when you compare it to the lost jobs and this fishing industry and the tourist industry being replaced by temporary jobs that go away, this $5,000 is going to be cheap.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Gary. All right. Does anybody else care to comment on this agenda item before we call a vote? Seeing none, we are voting to authorize submission of this SEL 805 form to pose this advisory question on the November ballot. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Very
And
good.
I will explain my vote because I don't like advisory votes, but I listen, and I think some points you made about the impact that knowing that our citizenship is dead set against something like that is more important than my concern about having advisory votes.
All right.
Just a couple, if I may, Mr. Chair.
Yes,
Just a
Commissioner.
couple more comments. You probably even don't know that the wind companies, whoever they are, I've met with several of them, they expect all of us to pay for the onshore upgrades. Also, reading the other day, the people in England found out that their windmills onshore, when the wind quits blowing, the diesel generators turn the windmills so they look like they're producing power. And that windmill power then is fed into the grid like it was still, the wind was still going. Amazing, huh?
Okay. That's something. Okay, consent agenda.
Move approval.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
And commissioner reports.
Can I go
Commissioner
first?
Sweet, you have 5 minutes.
I
So,
have
yeah.
5 minutes before I have to leave.
Yeah.
I don't think it'll take me 5 minutes to make my report.
Oh, cool.
I think we owe a great deal of gratitude for our fair board and for all the volunteers that helped put on the fair. I think they've brought it to new levels and will continue to get better if they don't wear themselves out. I remind you all that the fair pays for itself. We have invested some funds from American Rescue Plan funds in improving the fairgrounds, but the fair each year has to pay its own way. We have one employee, one county employee. That's the business manager, keeps all the other volunteers on the straight and narrow about family or county processes. But other than that, it is complete volunteerism that runs the fair. I'm very proud of them.
Incredible.
And I appreciate so much what they did.
Yeah.
Bobby, can you put that picture up? Once in a while we talk about some of the frustrations we deal with out in our county forest. Is there another one too? Just real briefly, I don't want to take a lot of time with this, but I guess that's just the one.
No, it'll go.
Oh, okay. It's real discouraging to go out there and find that. And the garbage is one thing, the risk of fire is another thing.
Yes.
And so if we're in order to look after the county's assets. The Board of Commissioners has chosen to lock off some of the logging roads, and we don't like it any better than any of you do, but this is what we often, all too often, see. I hope that helps you understand a little bit more about why we have done the things we have done. And, pardon?
It wasn't Mark Daly's trash, was it?
No, it's not. This is a different place. And then the last thing, and this isn't really county business, but we've been involved in a little way that a very popular, little known but very popular beach along the coast here is Lighthouse Beach. And there are some real issues about access to that beach, public access. One of the landowners across which people were trespassing donated some of their land, a little narrow section of it, right at the border of it. And not only did they donate it to Oregon Department of Parks and Recreation, they also built a trail down some very difficult terrain. If you're older than 16, I wouldn't advise trying to go down that trail. But no, it's given the terrain, it's quite a thing that a family has volunteered to do. And with that, I have to excuse myself and go to
Good on you for doing the right thing, John.
Finally, huh?
Commissioner Sweet, thank you for joining us today, gracing us with your presence.
Get out of here. I have to deal with that all the time. I get back quite often.
Yes, he does. He never misses an opportunity.
Thanks,
all right. So I'll just follow up on Commissioner Sweet's comments about the fair. What an incredible enterprise put on by so many people who selflessly give of their time. It's really an amazing thing to behold. And there's so much appreciation that I have, and I know so many others do, for people like, I hesitate to call out specific names, but here's Darius sitting right in the room. Incredible time he puts in. I know Keith Lewis was in the room. I think he's left.
Gone, yeah.
And so many others. Gary Haga. And here I go with some names, and I can't say them all.
Pam.
And Pam Lewis and
Dennis.
Dennis Herman, and so many others. I mean, they just go on and on. And I'll tell you, the work that went into this year's fair rendered a product that is the best I've seen since I've lived in Coos County. For 23 years, I have not seen a fair as good as this year's. And I believe, we haven't seen the numbers yet, but when I walked through there Friday night, Saturday night, unbelievable how many people were in that Midway area. It was incredible. So it paid off. What?
I couldn't bear to leave you all. I came back.
Yeah. Well,
actually, if my head weren't attached,
okay.
I don't know where it would be.
So I just want to second the thanks to all the volunteers and everybody who's worked so hard on that fair, and it was great. A great coming together of the community. So thank you all. We did have a meeting in Curry County on the taking back sovereignty on management of federal lands that fall within our county, because the federal government has been derelict in the management of those lands, putting us all at risk for fire, fiscal impacts, and other kinds of challenges that should not be foisted on we the people of Coos County. And so we're going to stand up and try to make that case. And so if you are inclined to pray for us in that endeavor, because if we're successful, I see this as a possible avenue to right the wrongs that have been imposed on us through the illegal taking of our timber resources by the federal government. And with that, I'll turn over comments to Commissioner Main.
Oh, it was a long week last week with the fair and everything. But on a personal note, I want to tell you something. In case you have to have one done. Yesterday I went to Eugene for an implant. Takes about a year, by the way. And they do the extraction, and 6 months later, like yesterday, they do the post-implant part. But what I want to tell you is, wear a short sleeve shirt and you go in there. They hit you. I'm totally deathly afraid of needles. They have a cold shot. Okay, I'm not paying attention talking to some of the people. And they take this super thin needle and they deaden it. I didn't know they did that. Then they put in the IV. And they said, I said something, they said, you'll be out in a few seconds. Well, yeah, I woke up in recovery, no pain, haven't had any since yesterday at all. Amazing process. Now, this whole thing of go stick you in the arm and whatever else and hurt for days, no. It is an amazing process that this Dr. Kevin Sweeney does in Eugene, kind of across the freeway from the mall, or the, what do you call it, shopping center there.
The Valley River?
Yeah, Valley River. Yeah, it was an amazing process. I just have to tell you, in case you are in that situation, that is amazing. No problem, ever. But it's pretty cool, because I don't like Novocaine, I don't like any of that stuff, just drives me insane about that stuff. So just a word for all to help your life a little better. That's it.
Okay, very good. Let's see, we don't have our comment list up here. Got that.
You can cross me off, although he's got a well talk.
Okay, all right, we'll cross you off. Anybody else wants to be crossed off of this? Okay. All right.
You can cross me out, I pass.
Okay. All right, that takes us to Jim Bennett.
Jim Bennett, and well, you know, Commissioner Main kind of showed today, bias aside, why he kind of is the most important guy in the county, simply because he has a depth of knowledge and history that just, you know, can't be duplicated at this time.
Yep.
And some kind of organic truth kind of showed itself, you know? We kind of saw who was going to be an agent of the state and who was going to be an agent of the county. And we want agents of the county. That's what we voted for. And of course, like I've probably said a few times, the elephant in the room is that sustainable development is not about our living here at all. We're not supposed to be here. That's why they keep taking away anything that's a hub for commerce or tourism or jobs. And this, you know, if you try to use common sense to understand this windmill thing, you can't get there from here. It'll just make your head bang. You have to understand that it's just another act of war against us. Speaking of which, the subject that unfortunately is going to be front and center more and more are these deliberate, prescribed acts of arson, these wildfires. And these wildfire protection plans include more of the warm and fuzzy, deceitful language that these alphabet mafia is, and these alphabet of different warm and fuzzy sounding agencies are famous for. They call it management. You know, management sounds better. It's like I'm calling it a treatment instead of a cure. But really what it's about is just another instrument of rural cleansing. And I'm a little bit disappointed in a couple of fronts in that I sent you an ordinance pursuant to these wildfire protection plans that Jackson County passed with that rock star, Colleen Roberts. She was invited to, Trump invited her to the White House in recognition of it. It's been very successful, even as a QR code and everything. I sent it to you. I can send it again. Actually, I'd like to see Rob Taylor have her on the show. She's a rock star and implemented a lot of the same things that we should be implementing. Also, you were presented with, I thought, a pretty well-researched proclamation that I was hoping would be pursuant to an ordinance that would disallow any more of this unconstitutional consensus crap from our county. And the music is playing for you to utilize it. And I was really happy to hear a couple of people in the room know about the Chevron decision, which neuters the alphabet mafia's ability to interpret and pervert law and commingle administrative rule with law. Also, the grants pass thing is significant because it neuters, homeless people's rights to just set up camp anywhere they want. It's our county, and you guys have the ability to handle the homeless situation the way that you want. So, sustainable development's tenet is about removing us from being here, and the constitutional tenets empower you locally. And fortunately for us in this coup, the Constitution trumps sustainable development.
All right,
Thanks,
thank
guys.
you.
Good day today. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're just going down the list. We'll get you, Rob. Okay. Next up was Karen Crouch. Care to come again?
Karen Crouch, Lakeside. Just wanted to reiterate how important public comments are. And I find it difficult to understand why the public comments are at the end of the meeting instead of at the beginning, like other counties. I checked Wayne County, Douglas County, they have them at the beginning. To sit through this, I understand you have a process to go through, but I got out of my house at 8 o'clock this morning, and I'm not going to be returning until well after 1 o'clock, most likely. I would like to see a consideration to moving them to the beginning. I understand they used to be at the beginning and then it got changed. I was here at the last meeting, which was quite contentious, but the public comments got cut off. If I had been behind those people after it was stopped, I would have been really, really upset. So I would like to have you consider putting them at the beginning, encourage public comment, instead of making it miserable to try to sit through this whole thing. You have department heads that have left. You have other people that, I wanted to go and say hi after the meeting because I don't want to talk during the meeting, but they're not here because it takes so long. That's my 2 cents.
All right, thank you for that. And I'll just respond to a couple of those comments. I do see the value of having the public comments at the beginning of the meeting. However, to accommodate that, what we did is incorporate public comments during agenda items, which was not part of the protocol previously. So there is the significant point, I think, is that's speaking to the relevance of the issue at hand. Everybody in this room has an opportunity to comment on every single agenda item all the way through. And the one of the main reasons for moving the comments to the back was that our paid staff is here on county time. They have work that they need to be doing as well not to discount the value of anyone's time, because I've been out there as well, and I understand, but we're trying to make it more efficient, not less efficient. I apologize that the reality of public participation does require a significant portion of your time. You know, if there's a better way, we're open, and certainly we'll consider your comments and think about how we might be able to accommodate that. We do work for you. We do. Well, we always remember that. Okay, Marty Kurt.
Like a bad penny, I just keep turning it.
Third time's a charm.
Yeah, there you go. Maybe I'll have something to say this time. But let's not hold our breaths. Anyway, first thing I'd like to say, well, I think it's good afternoon at this point. First off, let me state that I'm 100% convinced. What's that?
22.
Oh, well, good morning then. So anyway, first off, I'm kind of rewinding to previous commissioner meetings. I'd like to say that I'm 100% convinced that the two people that are working in our elections office are doing an impeccable job. I've observed their work and interacted with them numerous times. They do their best to help me whenever they can. If there's shenanigans going on, it's not being done by anyone in our elections office. Some of the things that were missed about Dr. Frank talking about dirty voter rolls is most of the voter roll changes are done by the state at the state level, from the DMV, from health services, et cetera, We had a 10 to 12% churn every year for the last 4 years. And if you have a problem with the data, well, we're getting the data from the Secretary of State. So if you have a problem with the Secretary of State's data, then that means you're having a problem with the election. And if you're having a problem with the algorithms I used and the methods I used to go through that data, well then ask me how I did it. I'll show you exactly how you can reproduce it and get the exact same results. Now let's look at it this way. There's 50,000 voters in Coos County. There's a churn rate of 10% according to, I took the 2021 voter rolls, 2022, 2023, 2024. If somebody was on 2021 and not on 2022, I consider them removed. There's somebody that was on 2020 or vice versa. So easy enough to figure out who is added and removed. So at one point, 12% of the population is churning every year, which means if it's 50,000 voters, let's make an easy number out of it. That means 5,000 changes in the voter rolls. That means that Lark and her coworker are doing, if they're doing 5,000 over a 50-week year, because it's easy to do the math that way, that means they're doing 100 changes a week, which means it's a 5-day work week, which means they're doing 20 changes a day, every day of the week, every single day they're at work. Now, I can't imagine they're actually doing 20 changes a day, every day of the week. And if they are, then wow, that's a lot of changes. But what I'm saying is this is all done at the state level, not at the county level. I'm not casting aspersions on the county level people. I'm saying, the people in the elections office are doing a great job, and they've been really helpful when I've asked questions and very good at clearing things up. So I just wanted to clear the slate and say I got no problem with the elections office here in the county. We got a problem at the state level and the ERIC and the HAVA and all the rest of the stuff that combines to make our voter rolls untenable.
Great.
That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Marty. All right. Joe Wilson, is Joe still here?
Joe left.
Joe left. Okay. Rob, you had your hand up?
You betcha. Boy, after hearing all that, I got all kinds of comments now. Rob Taylor from Bandon. To reiterate what we said, we had Dr. Franken here. I think it's a great idea to have him back. And I know there was a lot of people who showed up at the following meeting who were upset. And I have to reiterate what Marty said. Nobody's accusing anyone in the clerk's office of any malfeasance. In fact, they have been wonderful. I ask them questions, they get right back with me. I have never had a problem. Going back to Terry Turry, I've been on recounts. I think they run a tight ship. However, there's more to the job of being a county clerk in the elections than just the county clerk. And for an example, no one can say that there is no voter fraud going on. And I'll give you one good example. Thomas Tuttle Thomas Tuttle is the #1 contributor to Senator David Brock Smith's campaign. Thomas Tuttle lives in Gold Beach. Yes, he lives in Gold Beach, and he has a house in Gold Beach, but he also has a house in San Francisco. He's a registered Democrat in San Francisco, and he's also a registered independent in Gold Beach. Now, I wasn't looking for voter fraud. I was just doing an investigation on David Brock Smith's largest contributor, this Democrat from San Francisco. Well, come to find out, this Democrat from San Francisco, who gives a buttload of money to David Brock Smith, has been voting in San Francisco as a Democrat and in Oregon from the Independent Party since 2012. So I turned him into the Secretary of State's office, and because he didn't vote in the same election since 2018, it was a statute of limitations. They wouldn't go back and fine him for that. But the county clerk had to force him to take off his name from the registration in California. He had to do that to be able to vote in the last election in the primary in Gold Beach. He's been committing voter fraud since 2012. I proved this. Beyond a reason of a doubt, we have proved this. There are 400 second houses in Bandon alone. How do we know that the people who are living in those second houses and who live in other places aren't voting in both places at the same time or in different dates when the elections occur, such as the primary? We don't really. I mean, it's up to, there's a system, I believe it's called ERIC. Yeah, ERIC is a system, but for some reason it didn't catch Thomas Tuttle, so I would imagine it might not catch some of the 400 people in Bandon who have a second home there. So there is nobody who can say that there isn't voter fraud going on. I proved it. That's a fact. So I just want that to be clear, and I would love to hear, and I'm sure you guys would allow this to happen, if anyone who is opposed to Dr. Frank, I think you guys would allow their experts in here to testify, wouldn't you? Of course. And I would love to hear it. I would love to hear these arguments. We just have questions, and we want people to answer those questions and not cast aspersions. All we heard was Dr. Frank was bad. All his messages have been debunked. But the fact is that they didn't come up here with a chart, a number, a figure to explain how that was wrong. They just said he was debunked. I want to see someone come in here and actually argue those figures and numbers. So that was the first comment I wanted to make. Second one was about the public comments itself. Public comments has been changed, I don't know, 3 times since Nikki, Whitty, Stufflebean, and Griffith. It used to be at the back of the meeting. They moved it at the front of the meeting, and you should have seen the uproar. People were so mad. How dare you put the comments at the front of the meeting? We want to be able to respond at the end of the meeting. So I think it was just recently we moved it from the front of the meeting to the back of the meeting, and now people are upset that it's at the back of the meeting. But one of the reasons I think we did it is so the department heads could go back to work without having to sit through the hour and a half of public comments when we had those hour and a half of public comments. Third comment I wanted to make, and I'll make this brief. John did an incredibly good thing right there. John did a really good thing, and you know, we don't always agree, but that was superb. And to top it off, you guys cutting your salary. I wasn't here for that meeting. That was beautiful. I've never seen that happen in government before. In fact, I think that's the first time I've ever seen anyone to vote to cut their salary. I've never seen that. Thank you. Thank you, and that's going to go a long way in the election, and I think you putting this advisory question on the ballot is going to help if you put a tax. I don't know if you're still going to put a tax levy on the ballot itself, but putting this advisory question on there, that's going to help you tremendously, because between cutting your salary to show the people you are just as invested in this county, more so than many, many other people out there, and then telling people you want to know their opinion because the issue is that important, is going to go a long way to passing that tax levy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rob. Okay, we've hit the end of our list. Is there anyone else who did not sign up who does wish to tender public comment? Going, gone. Okay, thank you all for being here. We're adjourned.
Anyone want windmill signs? I got
windmill sign, put it up in front of your